Merry Christmas, Dub Nation. Unfortunately, the Warriors didn't give the gift that we all really wanted, which was a victory, but it was a valiant effort. The effort was there. They played the defending world champion Denver Nuggets incredibly close in a road game, in an early Christmas game at 5,000 feet plus elevation. I wasn't discouraged from this. They could have won, but while moral victories are not something I personally subscribe to, tonight it was definitely today. This is ridiculously early. NBA games do not belong while the sun shines. But regardless, it wasn't a bad game. I'm actually coming out of this feeling okay. Andrew Wiggins had his best game of the year, and the Warriors could have made some corrections. We'll get into it all next. Merry Christmas, everyone. The Warriors lost, but there were a lot of good things that came out of this game. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Threads at Dog Wild. And yeah, folks, this was not a feel-good day for the Golden State Warriors simply because they lost. Who wants to see the Warriors lose a game at any point? But there were some positives to come out of this game. The Warriors play the defending world champion Denver Nuggets, a team I feel very strongly that is the biggest obstacle, the biggest test for the Golden State Warriors. If they're going to win a title, they're going to have to beat this Denver Nuggets team. And they have the talent to do so. I think they proved that today. They lost this game 120-114. They were leading at the half, I believe. I believe the halftime score, they were leading by 1 point at the half. They were trailing by just 3 at the end of the third quarter. And it was a game where it certainly felt like the Warriors were playing the Denver Nuggets and the officials. This was a horribly officiated game. And I think sound has come down now. And this is courtesy of the Athletics Golden State Warriors beat reporter, Anthony Slater, who always does a fantastic job as a sports journalist. I tip of the cap to Anthony Slater. I give credit where credit's due, and he certainly deserves it. So he posted this attribution of Steve Kerr talking about the officials. The reason why this became particularly contentious today is because Nikola Jokic broke his own personal record for most free throws made in a game. He made 18 free throws in this game. Nikola Jokic was he was a perfect 18 for 18 from the line, clearly made all the difference in this game. And you saw at one point Steve Kerr during the game, I don't know if we heard it or if it was lip reading. I certainly caught it very clearly. He was calling out flopping by the Nuggets that the officials were just overlooking. Yet last game, they happily called 2 flopping calls on the Golden State Warriors, which was egregious. So let's hear what Steve Kerr has to say about the officiating following today's loss.
Finished with 18 free throws. I mean, you guys were clearly upset with some of the calls. Yeah. Just what did you think about how big a factor was the way he was kind of ref today, and what did you think of it?
I have no problem with the officials themselves. They're all across the league. We have really good officials. I have a problem with the way we are legislating defense out of the game. That's what we're doing in the NBA. The way we're teaching the officials, we're just enabling players to BS their way to the foul line. If I were a fan, I wouldn't have wanted to watch the second half of that game. It was disgusting. It was just baiting refs into calls, but the refs have to make those calls because that's how they're taught. So I have a real problem with the way we've legislated defense out of the game in this league. And the players are really smart in this league. And for over the last decade or so, they've gotten smarter and smarter, and they're just we have enabled the players, and they are taking full advantage. And it's a parade to the free throw line, and it's disgusting to watch. Thanks.
Woo! All right, strong. I mean, we don't hear strong words from Steve Kerr very often when it comes to officiating. That's one thing that I personally wish we heard more of, because the Warriors, I feel like, it's screwed night in, night out when it comes to these damn officials. It's the officiating. It's not just basketball. I feel like it's across the board in almost every sport in terms of incompetency, in terms of bias, and it just. I don't remember fan bases ever being this dissatisfied with officiating, and tonight was certainly no exception. Again, Nikola Jokic shot 18 free throws tonight. He made all 18 of them. He scored 26 points. And this is one of the reasons why I felt a little encouraged. Is because today's game was an example of where Draymond Green could have helped, right? His absence was felt in the sense that you had two players from the Warriors guarding Nikola Jokic all game, Kevon Looney and Trayce Jackson-Davis, the rookie that we're all falling madly in love with. And Trayce Jackson-Davis, I thought, held his own. All things considered, I thought he was actually did great out there. The problem is he was routinely in foul trouble. Trayce Jackson-Davis played just shy of 15 minutes in tonight's game, 14 minutes, 55 seconds to be precise. And in those 15 minutes, he was 3 for 4 from the field, grabbed just 3 rebounds, below what we normally expect from him. But he got called for 5 fouls, and he was constantly in foul trouble. And so as a result of that, we only saw him again for 15 minutes, scored 8 points in those 15. One of those buckets, by the way, in case you didn't watch the entire game, I'm sure they'll show this in the highlights, but Stephen Curry, he has had a few passes this year that, in my humble opinion, will be replayed 20, 30 years from now. In terms that they're very reminiscent of the type of passes Magic Johnson would throw during the Showtime era Lakers. I mean, these are just dynamic passes. And we saw one recently where he threw one, I think, to Moses Moody. There was one earlier in the season. I think it was like an alley-oop to Gary Payton II. And in tonight's game, he threw this pass almost from midcourt that ended up being an alley-oop to Trayce Jackson-Davis. It was beautiful. It was an absolute spectacle to watch. But the point is, Trayce Jackson-Davis, the refs took him out of the game, plain and simple. And Kevon Looney showed in the first round of the playoffs 2 years ago that Nikola Jokic is just too much for him to handle. Look, the Jokic is too much for most people to handle. But again, the officiating is abysmal. And when the day comes where robots replace officials in all sports, a perfect example of where we're seeing this now in terms of technology, automation, just phasing officials out of the game is tennis, where we see this technology with balls out on the sidelines and so forth. When that day comes, I'm going to be ecstatic, because we'll finally get consistency. We'll finally, there's going to be no bias anymore. There won't be human beings making mistakes in this facet of the game anymore. It drives me insane. And the Denver Nuggets for tonight's game, 32 free throw attempts on the night to 23 for the Golden State Warriors. And when the Warriors lose by 6, when the Warriors come really close to winning the rebounding battle, they lost that by just 43-39. The Warriors won the points in the paint battle tonight, which a category that they've been heavily criticized for, and rightfully so, all year. They won that tonight, 50-44. The difference in this game was the officials. And it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Now, look, there's a lot of other things to break down in this game. We could talk about rotations. We could talk about the fact that, Moses Moody played 2 minutes. I thought that was weird. I don't think that's justifiable. But there were a lot of positives, and I want to highlight some of those. I took a lot of notes from tonight's game to detail what exactly went wrong, because, again, the Nuggets are the standard bearer. A game like today is where you nitpick and break down what went right and wrong for this Warriors team, because the Nuggets are the obstacle. You beat the Nuggets, you're likely winning the World Championship this year. And there are certain things from tonight's game, like huge takeaways. I'm going to read those to you in just a moment, after I give some love, first and foremost, to eBay Motors. I'm trying to keep up with all the chat here. One chat that I lost who wrote it, and I apologize for that, but they wrote that we didn't see the front court of Kuminga and Trayce Jackson-Davis tonight. That has become my favorite front court. on this Warriors team, and we barely saw it, and that was egregious. So whoever wrote that, I agree with you wholeheartedly. There were a few things that Kerr did that we could criticize, but I'm not that discouraged from this. I think all in all, this was actually a solid effort and outing for the Golden State Warriors, and it's just a combination of a few things that I'll talk about in just a moment. But the officiating had to start the show talking about that because it was just wrong. It was flat out wrong what was going on out there. And I feel like the Warriors are picked on by these officials. It's weird that the Warriors are the only team getting called for flopping. Okay, there were quite a few plays out there from the Nuggets where they were clearly trying to sell fouls. It was blatantly obvious. But for some reason, it's the moment Nikola Jokic touches the ball, the refs are going to blow the whistle. It's insane. So we're going to talk more in just a moment here. First and foremost, though, let's give some love to our first sponsor for the day, and that's eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft, whether you're scouting the waiver wire, each week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So Josh picked 5 players. We've heard these before. The script has not been updated yet. The 5 players are Brandon Pajemski, who had a fantastic game today. We'll talk about him in just a moment. Tari Eason, Grayson Allen, James Wiseman of the Detroit Pistons, who are experiencing a historic slide right now, and Malachi Branham. So today I'm going to go with Tari Eason, who's still coming off the bench, but it doesn't really matter as Ime Udoka has found minutes for him for the Rockets. He's a strong fantasy value per minute option who becomes useful to everyone as these minutes tick up. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. And the reason why the perfect fit analogy is referenced in this ad is because if you ever use eBay Motors to buy parts for your vehicle, they have this awesome check mark system where if the part will match your car, it clicks green and you know for certain that the part is the right part for your vehicle. It's awesome. It's a great way to shop, especially if you're shopping for your ride. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And follow me on social media on Threads at Dog Wild. I'm going to try to get to the chat as much as possible. Let's this is a good point, Courtney Fox. Why don't we start with this? And this is a very recent chat I just saw. Kuminga we saw a stereotypical performance from Jonathan Kuminga tonight. What I mean by that is, and I've been saying this on the show all season long, Kuminga, for whatever reason, is typically a much better second half player. And he had a slow start to this game, but in the third quarter, he was exploding. He started attacking the rim without any impediment. He was unstoppable. His third quarter numbers, and I'll pull these up for you right now, if I can find them. And this, I think this is the reason why where the comment is coming from. Kuminga in the third quarter scored 7 points, was a perfect 2 for 2 from the line, and I felt like he was getting into a rhythm. And Courtney Fox writes, Kuminga came out and got us 7 points in the third and hardly played after that. Made no sense. I agree with you. It was really weird. And this is where the structure of Kerr's rotations has come frequently to burn them. Meaning, instead of rolling with what is going best in the game, we oftentimes see these substitutions that are planned out, that are scripted, and regardless of whether or not a certain player is playing lights out and should not be pulled, Kerr will still go with the script, and he did that tonight. And it was unfortunate. Kuminga, I thought, should have played more, could have played more, and it leads into something I wrote on my notes tonight, which I thought really stuck out in terms of playing a team like the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets are long and they're big. Okay. The Denver Nuggets are a team where small ball just cannot work against. It can't. And when you look at the Nuggets starting lineup, for example, Michael Porter Jr. is their small forward. That dude stands 6'10". He's a huge human being who can hit the three. Aaron Gordon's a 6'10" power forward who's incredibly athletic. We all know about Nikola Jokic, the 7-footer who can play point guard. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a larger than usual shooting guard. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, for example, when he was with the Lakers, was more of a small forward. He's much more like he could play the 4 in a small ball lineup. He's your shooting guard for the Denver Nuggets. And then Jamal Murray, who by most standards is a traditional shooting guard, is a point guard for this Nuggets team. He stands 6'5". This is a big team. So the Warriors cannot get away with the small ball antics that we all know Steve Kerr loves. And Jonathan Kuminga, I thought, was playing fine in this game. He played a total of 23 minutes, scored 13 points, grabbed 5 rebounds, had 2 assists. He was 4 of 8 from the field, had 4 trips to the line. If there's one thing Jonathan Kuminga is really starting to master, it's drawing fouls. But again, Steve Kerr, we didn't see Kuminga much in the fourth quarter. In fact, in the fourth quarter, Kuminga played a total of 3 minutes. And the why of that, I don't know. I have no clue. Again, we saw Moses Moody play a whopping total in this game of 2 minutes, 32 seconds. That to me is not very justifiable in all honesty. But when you're playing a team like the Nuggets, you got to play big. And Kerr did the same thing with Kuminga. I think early in the game as well in the first quarter, where Kuminga was starting to get on a roll, and then he had 2 huge offensive possessions, and then yanked. And then Michael Porter Jr. in that same first quarter, 10 points in that first quarter. That's what really got the ball rolling, and that's where it just really. And I'm sure it occurs to anyone. I don't think you need to be a quote unquote expert or a basketball aficionado to watch a game like this and see with your own eyes, damn, Denver's a much bigger team. And again, the Warriors fought valiantly. They only got out rebounded by 4 in this game, but that part of it was discouraging. Now, one thing I saw, which was interesting. First of all, actually, before we go into what I was about to say, which is referring to the Warriors lineups, there was a soundbite, and I can't play the soundbite in the show because it was played on ESPN. And it's company policy. Legally, we could technically play little clips like that. They do fall under fair use, but it's with YouTube, the copyright thing gets really muddled. So we always play it safe. So we never play clips from ESPN. But there was a portion of the second quarter, and if you didn't watch the whole game, and you decide to watch the replay, you'll catch it. I'm sure these clips are available on social media. I actually posted the clip on my Threads account @DogWild of Chris Paul being mic'd up. And you've heard Charles Barkley over the years on Inside the NBA on TNT, and it's become like a running gag at this point, right? For years, he keeps saying, it is strictly subjective, that Chris Paul is the best leader in the game, right? And I think if you follow basketball closely, you've heard that reference repeatedly. And most of the time, you just kind of laugh that off because, look, Chris Paul's never won a title. We all have seen his talents, but to be called the greatest leader ever without any rings, it kind of, that claim rings a little hollow, if that makes sense to you. But there was a really fascinating, to me, a clip of Chris Paul being mic'd up, and he was talking to Andrew Wiggins, and these were words of encouragement. He was telling Wiggins to speak up if he wants the ball. He was telling Wiggins to be more aggressive. And I don't know if those words had anything to do with Wiggins' performance tonight. We've heard a few times this year, various media members come out and say, this was Andrew Wiggins' best game of the year. Look, Wiggins has had an awful season. This is the worst year of his career by far. Why that's happening, who knows? To me, today was the best game of Andrew Wiggins' season. I don't think it was even close. And again, on the year, Wiggins is averaging just 12.3 points per game. 12.3. This is someone who used to average over 20 in a game when he used to play for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he comes close to that during his time with the Golden State Warriors. His field goal percentage, just 42%. His three-point percentage, just 30%. So, he's had a few good games here and there. I thought he played fantastic tonight. Now, was it good enough to take minutes away from Moody, for example? I don't know. You could get creative with scenarios like that. But Andrew Wiggins, I'd have to give a tip of the cap to him because he shot the ball well. He was 7 for 11 from the field. He even shot the three well. He was 2 for 4 from beyond the arc. He got 3 trips to the line. He's one of the few players in the Warriors who can consistently draw fouls, which is very important for a lot of reasons. The Warriors are last in the NBA in fast break points. One of the best ways to stop a fast break, draw a foul. You're shooting 2 free throws and stopping all the action. You're drawing fouls on other players. You're increasing team fouls on the other team so you can get to the line easier for non-shooting fouls, right? There's a myriad of reasons why drawing fouls is important. The Warriors don't have a lot of people who can do that. And that's been one of the many reasons why I feel like Kuminga just impresses me for a 21-year-old kid to already be mastering the art of drawing fouls. But Wiggins is one of the other players on this team who can do that. It's Wiggins, it's Kuminga, and it's Steph. And that's pretty much it in terms of drawing fouls consistently where you're getting to the line and shooting those extra free throws. We'll see if Brandon Podziemski develops that part of his game. He's not afraid to attack, but he hasn't been drawing a lot of fouls and free throw shots yet. But Kuminga also had 4 free throw attempts in this game tonight. I'm sorry, 6. 6 free throw attempts in this game tonight. Went to the line 3 times. Finished the game with 22 points. But here's the stat that sticks out to me the most about Andrew Wiggins, because even in other games where he's had some decent stats, it hasn't really impacted the game in terms of winning, in terms of positive results. He was a plus 18 in terms of net rating. He led the whole team in net rating tonight, and he scored 22 points again with 7 of 11 from the field. So kudos to Andrew Wiggins. Regardless of whatever is going on with him, this was a good game for him tonight. And yeah, Ernie, when we come back, I'm going to talk about Clay, and Clay did not have a good game tonight. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But I just have to give credit where credit's due. If you're going to have a good night, I'm not going to sit here and ignore that. Wiggins had a great game. There's a lot more to discuss, though, after I give some love to another one of our sponsors for this Christmas Day show, and that's Gametime. And it's an apropos sponsor simply because the holidays are here, and more importantly, the Warriors are going to be playing a lot of home games in the next month. And if you want tickets to the Warriors, if you want tickets to a concert, whatever you want or need tickets to, Gametime is the place to go for a lot of reasons. Let's say you decide to wait last minute to get tickets to go to an event. Let's say you and your friends or family decide, hey, let's go see this show. It's tonight. What? Gametime is clutch when it comes to last minute tickets, both for deals and for availability. So if you're worried about supply, Gametime is clutch in that regard. If you're wondering what the seats will look like, the Gametime app gives you a phenomenal view of your seats. So you're not wondering, are these seats good? Are we going to be able to see the action from where we're at? Gametime's visuals are fantastic in setting you up for knowing how the seats are going to look for you in terms of seeing the action. And maybe the best part of Gametime, their low price guarantee. Meaning, let's say you buy some tickets from Gametime and you happen to be shopping around other brokers and other dealers, and all of a sudden something sticks out to you. You're like, wait a second, I just bought tickets to that same row, that same section, but on this dealer's website or app, the prices are lower. All you have to do is show a screen capture of that to Gametime, and they'll refund the difference. That is literally a low price guarantee. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the Gametime app, create that account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
final segment of Locked On Warriors. Merry Christmas, everyone. Again, it was a discouraging loss, or rather, it was a tough loss, but it was encouraging. It wasn't discouraging. It was actually a very encouraging loss to the Golden State Warriors. I saw a team today that could have easily won. All right, that's what makes this encouraging for me. The Warriors could have, and by some arguments, should have won a game in Denver. And the reason why a lot of these regular season games matter for the Warriors is because you know damn well the other team is rising up. You know damn well that when the Warriors come to your building, even if they're off to a slow start, and I know they came into this game with a 5-game winning streak, which was snapped today, but teams don't take days off when they play the Warriors, okay? The Warriors get the best effort from the other team. And so to come out of a building and an arena that, in my humble opinion, is the toughest to win in right now because of the altitude, because of the talent, and to barely lose, that's encouraging. I know we're not discussing moral victories here, but the Nuggets are the standard bearer, and the Warriors came just short of pulling off the victory. Now, why did they lose? Well, there's a few reasons. Yeah, we talked about the fact that the Warriors have to play this team big. The Nuggets are a huge team. They are proof that small ball is potentially antiquated because they don't play that style at all, and their style is successful. I'm sorry. Now, one thing I noticed, and I was going to get to this in a moment. I was going to get to this, and then I started giving Wiggins his praise, is the Denver Nuggets went on an 11-0 run in the second quarter. And Steve Kerr decided to go to a lineup that has been shockingly, and I say this, I mean that, it is shocking to me that this lineup is incredibly successful, but it is. It's the OG lineup without Draymond Green. And what I mean by that is you have Chris Paul as your starting point guard. You have Steph playing alongside him. Wiggins was in the game. Klay Thompson was in the game, and Klay had a bad game. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And Kevon Looney was in the game. And Looney had a mixed bag. Now, for the people that are critical of Looney tonight, and I get it, you have every right to be. He can't defend Nikola Jokic. Offensively, he was meh. He finished the game with 4 points, had just 3 rebounds. That number has to be higher for Kevon Looney. But the Warriors are so thin. And this is where I don't know if it's time to start maybe giving Usman Garuba some serious minutes. That guy, by the way, looks exactly like Draymond Green. I always think Draymond's sitting on the bench when I see him. I'm always doing a double take every time I see Usman Garuba because they look so damn similar. But today was an example of the Warriors being awfully thin when it comes to size. Because if Kevon Looney, it does not play, Trayce Jackson-Davis had 5 fouls. Trayce Jackson-Davis was in foul trouble. That is the main reason why Kevon Looney played 21 minutes and change, and Trayce Jackson-Davis played just 15 minutes. He was in foul trouble the whole game. The refs were, and again, this is where Steve Kerr has every right to be pissed off about the officiating. It's BS. It is utter BS. It is insane that Nikola Jokic had 18 free throw attempts in tonight's game. The 18 free throws he made, I don't know if the attempts were an all-time high, but the 18 free throws he made was a career high, and it's ridiculous. And I'm going to play sound from Brandon Pajemski in just a minute as well. He talked about that too. But Steve Kerr went to that OG lineup in the second quarter, and that OG lineup is on the year the number one lineup for the Golden State Warriors in terms of net rating, or at least is tied for number one. Again, Chris Paul, Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney. They played 92 minutes together this season. They're a plus 36 together. Again, that's tied for the lead for the Golden State Warriors in terms of all of their 5-man lineups. And tonight was no exception. That 5-man unit, when they were on the floor together, responded with their own 8-0 run, and it was a huge reason why the Warriors led at the half. So that was encouraging. Now, why we didn't see those 5 playing together again for the rest of the game, and we didn't see it much, that you can point to Kerr and be like, hey, look, something worked for you. Why didn't you go to it more often? There were a lot of dumbfounding decisions by Steve Kerr in today's game. Klay Thompson had a bad game today as well. Besides the numbers, which I'm going to read to you in just a moment, one thing that stuck out to me, which was not a good look for Klay, was he got blocked twice, not once. The first one was bad enough, okay? When you're getting blocked on 3-point attempts, and you're Klay Thompson, who's 6'7", that's not a good look. All right. And that's testament to how big of a team the Nuggets are. They're long, they're big, it causes problems. And Klay, who did not have a good game, got blocked twice on 3-point attempts. That was weird to me. I don't think I've ever seen that in my life. And Klay on this game finished with just 9 points, shot 3 of 12 from the field, 3 of 10 from beyond the arc. That means his 2 field goal attempts inside the 3-point line were misses. Again, 9 points for Klay, a player that is routinely dependent on for being their second scorer, is not going to cut it. Yet they just lost this game by 6. All right. So there's a lot of reasons why I'm certainly not panicking after a game like tonight. I'm actually tonight, whatever. I'm actually pretty encouraged. Brandon Pajemski, let's hear some sound from him. He shot 4 of 7 from the field in today's game. Can't say enough about this kid. His 3-point shot was falling. He was 3 for 4 from beyond the arc. Had just 1 trip to the free throw line. Also grabbed 9 rebounds. Gotta love Pajemski. Added 6 assists. He also had 5 steals. Finished the game with 13 points. And he also talked about the officiating. Let's hear from Brandon Pajemski in terms of what was bothering him about the officials in tonight's game. Here's Pods.
Oh, we played great. I think to start the game was a little slow. I think the first group kind of was looking to Steph and Klay a lot. And a lot of times we were wide open. I think that second group that came in did a really good job. I think collectively we did a good job as a team. But, I mean, the fouls, it's kind of hard to get in the rhythm when it's free throws at the free throws.
That whistle.
100%. Every time, the clock stops and we got to take it out the net and they get a set defense, it just makes it tougher for us. So we just got to play without fouling. It's hard with the rules. Players are good at selling fouls, and Jokic is 4 for 12, which we love, but he shoots 18 free throws. Oh, he played great.
Yeah, so there he goes. So that's Brandon Pajemski, who again had a fantastic game. I don't know why. I know the Warriors are in a win now mode, but I don't know why people are not talking enough about the future of the Golden State Warriors. 5 years from now, you have 4 of your 5 starters already set. That's incredible. Brandon Pajemski, Moses Moody, who again 2 minutes is egregious. Kerr has to figure that out. You got to give this kid minutes. Because even though you're in a win now mode, you can't just ignore the future of this organization. You can't. That's just criminal. So Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, Trayce Jackson-Davis, that's 4 of your 5. You're set for the next 10 years, maybe 15. That's a damn nice thing to have for your team. So I'm ecstatic about that. And again, despite the fact that tonight was incredibly frustrating, we could point to officiating, but there were a few other things that happen as we've highlighted on the show today. Regardless. So, all righty, folks, Merry Christmas. It's a bummer they lost, but Christmas Day has never really been a successful day for the Golden State Warriors. They've routinely struggled. And Billy adds that Klay got blocked twice by Wemby. Okay, I don't remember that, but with Wembanyama, it makes a lot more sense. But yeah, the Nuggets are just a very long team. And I do hope that there is a learning lesson from this for the Golden State Warriors. Play your bigger players, please. All right. You got to get some size out there when you're playing a Nuggets team. Now, what does that mean? Play Moses Moody. Dude has a 7-foot wingspan. Let's give him more than 2 minutes and change. Let's give Kuminga more than 23 minutes. We saw Kuminga play nearly 30 the last game. Great things happen when that kid plays. It's the Kevon Looney thing, and that's where the officiating comes into play, because Trayce Jackson-Davis was nullified by the officials. He was just constantly in foul trouble this entire game. So we'll see what happens. But the Warriors are back in action. What's the date here? On the 28th, which is Thursday. I'm looking at my schedule right now. And they are back home playing the Miami Heat. That's a team they routinely beat. So hopefully they'll get back on the winning track. So point is, though, don't be overly discouraged about this game. It ended the 5-game winning streak. It was a loss against this Nuggets team that is clearly the rival of the Golden State Warriors. They are the team that they got to overcome. They're the reigning world champions, but they came close on the road. And yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. We'll be back at this soon. Bye-bye.